When siblings become strangers, this film follows 3 real reunions where childhood, silence, and a buried secret drove people apart, and where a single, tiny move turns strangers back into family. If your sibling is out of your life right now, this video will show you exactly what most people waste time doing: waiting, public posts, big dramatic apologies, and the quiet, counterintuitive step that actually works when everything else fails. You'll watch the exact moment a withheld truth is named, the exact phrase that disarms rage, and the simple action that reopened a door everyone thought was nailed shut, so you can decide whether to keep pretending it's too late or try the one thing that changes everything. You think you know how these stories end, but most do not. They start together. They break apart. They stay apart. Because of that, people assume silence is permanent, which is why the first reunion feels like a miracle, except it almost failed. A sister flew across the country, but she arrived with a speech everyone expected. And because everyone expected the speech, no one listened. So what actually broke the silence? It wasn't a speech. It was one small, unexpected sentence that disarmed 10 years of anger. Why did that single line work? Because it didn't demand forgiveness. It offered a different currency, responsibility without performance, which meant the other sibling could respond without being trapped. You want your sibling back. But most advice tells you to grandstand or ghost, which is exactly why most attempts backfire. So what should you do instead? Start smaller, much smaller. This is the moment you stop performing and start offering. Imagine a door you thought was welded shut. Most people bring a sledgehammer, but a sledgehammer shatters the threshold. Therefore, the only way back is a key, not a blow. Here's the key. Name one small truth. Not the whole history, not a long apology. Name the part you caused clearly, briefly, and without excuses. Then stop. Silence follows. Because of that silence, the other person has space to process without being shouted at, which creates a tiny opening. Tiny openings become conversations. Conversations become shared facts. Shared facts become trust. Trust rebuilds a family. Sounds simple, but simplicity is rare in grief. So here's the first reunion we followed. 2 brothers who hadn't spoken in 8 years. One brother arrived angry, but he surprised everyone by reading a single line on a napkin. "I can't change the past, but I can stop lying about it." That line broke his habit of performance. Therefore, the other brother lowered his guard. They did not hug immediately. They argued over coffee. They cried, but the argument became a map. It revealed what each feared losing. It showed the patterns that made them strangers, which meant the repair could be targeted. Microfixes replaced grand gestures. Repeat this pattern. Name a small truth. Leave space. Listen. Leave the rest for later. You might think a private message or public post will do the work, but public posts weaponize pride, and private messages hide accountability. So which path wins? Neither. The path that wins is face-to-face, short, honest, and with no script. Why face-to-face? Because words are half of a repair. Silence, posture, a pause, those are the other half. When we met the second sibling pair, they used a different tool, a neutral ritual. They wrote the thing they were ashamed of. But instead of shouting it, they folded it and put it in a cup. The act of folding was the ritual. Because of that ritual, confession stopped being a performance and started being a trade. One truth for one listening moment. That trade shifted the balance. The final pair had a buried secret that no one wanted to name. Most advice says bury or expose, but both are extremes. Instead, they practiced naming the secret as a fact, not as blame, which meant guilt could be discussed without melting into accusation. At the midpoint, you will want proof this works. Here it is. None of these reunions were instant cures, but each used the same mechanics. Small truth, radical brevity, space to respond, a ritual or physical action that made the confession believable. Because these mechanics target prediction, they violate the script everyone expects, they produce a tiny dopamine-led surprise. That surprise opens the brain to change. So what should you do now? If this is your life, Decide on one small truth you can own today. Write it down, send it in person or read it aloud. Say nothing more. Then wait, because silence is part of the repair, not its rival. If they walk away, you tried without theatrics. If they lean in, you will have earned the right to say more. This process costs humility, not money. That hidden cost is the pride you have to spend. Most people refuse to spend it, which is why most relationships remain strangers. We keep 10% of the story to protect ourselves. But the secret is this. The last 10% is the loop that finally opens the door. Here is the last dab you came for. A single tiny move can undo a decade of distance. It won't erase the past, but it will prove you are willing to change the future. If you're holding a screen right now, put it down and take one small step that scares you not to grandstand, but to be honest, because the key is not a speech. The key is a line. Say it, and if it works, tell us how. A single tiny move can turn strangers back into family.